Breaking news, breaking news. Search continues. Texas, let's keep the conversation going. JLR Magnolia investigates 105 now reported dead, and it is believed there'll be an update very, very soon. Expect the numbers to rise. Very gruesome scene, bad, terrifying, tragic, heartbreaking. A lot of negative emotions here. Searchers are still out there, volunteers, rescue operations, recovery going on. Guadalupe River, Kerr County, Texas. Let's keep the conversation going, folks. This morning, we see a search continuing along the rivers of the Guadalupe, Camp Mystic, Hunt, Ingram. A lot of the mainstream media seems like they went away. They vanished. A lot of the mainstream media seems like they stopped reporting on this. We will continue to provide updates on this terrible situation because there are still reportedly dozens and dozens of people still missing. Parents are outraged. Some locals are outraged. Public outcry. A lot of finger pointings. It looks like there's going to be a lot of investigations centered around this terrible, terrible tragedy that occurred. We know about this. This is 4th of July morning. A once-in-a-thousand-year flood affected the area, Kerr County, Hill Country, just northwest of San Antonio, Texas, just southwest of Austin, Texas, in the Hill Country area. If there's any good news out of this, it is Texans coming together in mass. Tons and tons of Texans just coming in throughout the last couple days. First responders, volunteers, searchers, EquiSearch, different organizations, law enforcement, 20 different law enforcement agencies, up to 2,000 personnel, hundreds and hundreds of boats, aircraft, dogs, cadaver dogs. So we're going to keep the conversation going, folks, and possibly we get an update very, very soon. Now, I went online this morning. I hope everyone is well wherever you're at. I know a lot of people are watching this from around the world, not just Texas. I went on, as we do each morning, and I was looking for some of the news reports or live feeds, and we only see the Associated Press. We don't see any other media that has been there for the last couple of days doing live reports anymore. Now they just go to reports. So hopefully this, no one abandons the missing people. There are missing children. There are missing children out there at 10, 11 in that range, including a counselor from Camp Mystic alone. We should get an update soon, possibly with some new numbers and new figures here. And or some information that's going on. There's volunteers coming in. There's different charitable organizations involved with the situation now. Food trucks, vendors, people coming in, bringing in supplies. Seems like it's pretty hot out there. Stay hot or stay hydrated in the heat. Stay hydrated. A lot of people are talking about these early warning systems, what could be done, what needs to be fixed here, what happens moving forward. They're saying that Camp Mystic possibly might not even be rebuilt again. That's the talk too. Camp Mystic might not even rebuild the place again because they're saying that it is in a flood-prone area right there on the Cypress and South Fork of the Guadalupe River. So many stories coming out about these acts of heroism, people saving children. Other people said stories, horror stories, how they woke up in the middle of the night by the sound of thunder, seeing rain come, already flooding inside their homes. People jumped to top of their furniture, started climbing the pillars and beams of their home, getting on top of the roof, trying to find a way to escape. Terrible, terrible situation here. So there's still activity going on out there. They vow to find every single person, search until they find all the people out there that are missing. So many news reports out, less live feeds. The Camp Mystic, there is higher elevation around Camp Mystic, but most of the children slept in very low-lying areas, almost like they were a sitting duck along that South Fork and Cypress Creek. They've had floods before, 1987, as we talked about, but they say nothing like this. Now, some of the meteorologists and everyone was putting out how this all started. Apparently, there was two low pressure systems that collided. One coming up through Mexico, one coming up through Texas, and it kind of collided there and then just mashed and then did a bunch of spinning. These two low, it's almost like they were saying the worst case scenario, almost like a perfect storm, even though it wasn't a hurricane. It was equivalent to, hurricane type downpours. 15 inches of rain fell in just a few hours. Weather forecast seems like there are less rain today, which is good news. So here we are in Texas. I want to see if we get an 11 a.m. update, possibly, or some sort of update by Kerr County officials. Yeah, it looks like there's a press conference just about to get underway. Sky News has something up. We'll put the press conference on. We'll see what happens here. It does appear like a press conference is coming on here any minute. So we'll continue to share the searches, the press conference, and any and all information related to this case and this terrible, terrible tragedy in Texas. Press conference coming up in a few minutes. 105 confirmed dead. They might even say the numbers are even gruesome and higher. It's bad. We knew the numbers were going to be over 100. Just based off the assessments of them talking about, the dire situation days ago. There's still dozens and dozens and dozens of people missing. So come on in. Come on in. JLR investigates, press conference. Volunteers and searchers still out there, still looking. 105 people dead. Local officials under fire. Bodies continue to be found along the river. There's reports that more bodies were found overnight. We probably will get an understanding here very, very shortly with the press conference. You can see the Guadalupe River seems like it went back to normal, but some people are saying the river itself is not the same as before. Press conference coming up. So many survivors, so many people have shared the stories about this. One report that's coming out saying vacant position may have hindered communication with emergency managers, former NOAA administrator says. Staff cuts at the local NOAA weather forecast office may have been a contributed factor in the inability of
remain along the Guadalupe River in Kerr County working to reunite families. The large search and rescue effort, including local, state, federal, and volunteer agencies, continue. As of 8 a.m. Central Time, 87 deceased have been recovered in Kerr County, including 56 adults and 30 children. Identification is pending for 19 adults and 7 children, with 1 additional person still unidentified. At present, 5 Camp Mystic campers and 1 counselor still remain unaccounted for. We ask private boats to stay off the Guadalupe River to allow search and rescue teams to operate without any interference. This is a tragic time for us. We're so grateful and thankful for all the resources that have been provided to us to do this job. And I can assure you we will not stop until this mission is complete. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to City Mayor.
Looks like they're trying to rush this through quickly. We'll see. Little grainy, folks.
Thank you for being here. I'm Joe Herring Jr. I'm Mayor of the City of Kerrville. I want to reassure our community and those families that the city, the county, the state, and the federal experts are working together, not separately, but as one team. If you go inside the Emergency Operations Center, you don't see silos. You see one team. I want to talk briefly about in-kind donations. The outpouring of generosity has been tremendous, and we are grateful. We are working on a new system to accept donations. And when those plans are complete, we will post them online on the city's Facebook page. We are grateful. We need a new system to handle the generosity of the world. Financial donations can still go to communityfoundation.net. That's the community foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Again, we are grateful for the generosity of the world. Over and over, I've asked you to pray. It occurred to me that I haven't asked you for what to pray specifically. Please pray for those who mourn, for those who wait, and for those who help. Now I'd like to call on Lieutenant Colonel Ben Baker.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Ben Baker, Lieutenant Colonel for Texas Game Wardens. I'd like to start out by thanking the mayor, sheriff, chief, our local state partners, Texas Department of Public Safety, and the many others that have responded to this tragic event. We as Texas are strong, and together we face adversity. Your Texas Game Wardens responded in the early mornings of Friday to this tragic event, along with many other local and state partners. Since the early mornings of Friday, your Texas Gamers have had over 300 game wardens in the area, serving the people of the state of Texas and the citizens of Kerr County. Among that, we've searched 26 river miles since the tragic event has started. We've had approximately 444 rescues, 30 recoveries. Some of our resources and assets we have dedicated to this tragic event include 2 helicopters with hoist teams, 12 drone teams, 10 K9 units, 9 swiftwater boat crews, 15 airboats, 16 UTVs, and 169 four-wheel drive vehicles. Your Texas Game Wardens will remain here in serving the community. We just ask you to continue to pray for the victims, for the families, for your first responders, for everyone involved. We'll open it up now to questions. If anybody has any.
Can you talk about how challenging it is for you guys in the mud, the big trees? What's been like the difference of rain?
No, thank you for that question. Extremely challenging. You know, we've got, of course, your Texas Game Wardens out there, your local, your state partners, Texas Task Force 1. We've got the National Forest Service out there. We've got A&M Forest Service. We've got numerous responders with specialized capabilities where we've got these large pile of debris. And with our canines and you know, when we're trying to make these recoveries, these large piles can be very obstructive. And to get deep into these piles is very hazardous. And those specialized teams have to go in there layer by layer because our first responders, also the safety of them is concerned. So it's extremely treacherous, time consuming, it's dirty work, it's the water's still there. So we're having to go layer by layer, peeling these off to make those recoveries. So we're.
What about mentally? Like when you guys stumble across someone who may be deceased, how do you process that?
Absolutely. We process it the best we can. We have professionals in place, our crisis intervention team. All the agencies have some members representing there, and officer wellness is a first responder wellness is a key component to these operations. So we're maintaining and monitoring our officer wellness, our first responder wellness. We're making sure they have the support. It's very tragic whenever you see human life, but to see a child and that loss of life is extremely tragic.
More rain
I
is
have a
expected
question.
to come down west of us, and eventually it's gonna get down to the Guadalupe River. Is that gonna put a halt to the searches? And if not, how are you gonna change the trajectory of the search and rescue operations?
So with the water coming down, that's always a concern. And I'm sure you've been monitoring the last couple of days where we've had some reports of maybe some additional water coming in. Obviously, that's going to impact the search and recovery efforts. Us with numerous other agencies do have air capabilities, drone capabilities. We've got numerous fixed wing, rotary helicopters here. So it will alter our patrol patterns and alter our searches, but it won't deter them.
I have a
Can you
question for
outline
the,
what
for
specific discussions and actions were taken between the time the first flood emergency alert came in at 1:14 a.m. and then when the river first started flooding homes hours later? What were the specific actions and discussions that happened in those hours?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure, absolutely. I would like to know if you could outline, please, what the specific actions and discussions were that local officials took between 1:14 a.m., that's when the first flood emergency alert came out, and hours later when the river first started flooding. What happened in those hours?
What I can tell you, when I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in.
like at 4 in the morning.
It was between 4 and 5 when I got notified. Okay. But prior to that, in that 3 to 4 area, my understanding is, and we're in the process of trying to put a timeline. That's going to take a little bit of time. As I've told you several times, that is not my priority this time. There's 3 priorities. That's locating the people out there, identifying and notifying the next of kin. That is what I'm taking as my job as sheriff here to do. Okay.
With all due respect, sir, I think that the community here is asking these questions. What happened? When did it happen? Was the emergency manager awake at the time? Did they push the button to issue an emergency alert?
Sir, it's not that easy when you just push a button. Okay. There's a lot more to that. And we've told you several times.
So did it happen?
I can't tell you at this time.
You
Okay.
can't tell me if the emergency manager of the county
Sheriff,
actually issued an emergency
Sheriff,
alert.
okay, Sheriff, who
Shimon,
is
just give me a second.
Emergency
Answer the question.
Operations Center? Who
Let him
runs
answer the question.
the Emergency
I'll
Operations
come back to you.
Center?
I'm going nowhere.
Appreciate it.
Who runs the Emergency Operations Center?
We have a communication center, a dispatch. Okay. We have a communication center. That's where the calls actually go to the police department. Then they're forwarded to
Right,
us.
but leading up to this, in monitoring the weather, there's, in any large city, in any state, there's an Office of Emergency Management that is monitoring the weather, that is watching and listening and getting briefings. Who was getting those briefings in this city, in this county? Who was receiving that information? And who would have ultimately made the decision to evacuate, hearing what was coming in from the Weather Service and other people?
Okay. What we would have done when we get notified. Okay. I'm going to tell you.
You're not emergency management though, right? The sheriff's not EOC.
No, there is
Who
no,
is
I meant
EOC?
as the city. Yeah.
So we understand you have
Okay.
many questions. Hang on.
No, I understand, but you're not gonna answer the question because that's up to the city manager and the mayor to answer those
Correct.
It's the county
questions.
emergency.
We understand
That's right.
you
That's
have
the
many
judge. Where is the
questions.
judge? The judge is not here.
We understand that, but right now, this team up here is focused on
We
bringing people
understand that too,
home.
but there are a number
That's our
of
focus.
questions that are
All those
leading up to
questions
this.
will be answered, but the
No,
priority right now
It seems like you're
is
ducking
bringing
the-
people home.
We totally understand that, and we value the
Outrage.
It's being done by those first responders. We're seeing them out there muddy and sweaty and grinding it out day after day. But your community is asking these questions.
And we will get answers. Right now,
Take
all of our
time.
resources are
They
focused
You should be able to
to
answer
recovery.
who was in charge of the emergency operations center at the time that was getting any briefing.
Do we have another question?
If any
I
briefings.
do. I think I'd like to focus on what local people can be looking for. We're looking at some erosion in roads and safety and then traveling. What can we tell people who live here right now and what they can do in their daily life? Should they worry about traveling on roads? Do we know anything about that infrastructure?
Sure, absolutely. Jonathan Lamb, Kerrville Police Department. So we know that there's substantial road damage. Some roads have been closed for safety. We've got crews out there in the county shoring them up and making sure that people can travel to and from. What we're asking for the public to do to assist us is if they believe that they have seen someone, a victim, notify emergency services. Call 911, let us know, or use our non-emergency numbers, area code 830-257-8181. Contact our dispatch team and we will send officers out there. We also ask folks to limit their travel. Our first responders have had a very difficult time getting to where they need to go because of the amount of people who are flooding our roadways. We understand there's natural curiosity. People want to come here and see the flood damage. Now is not the time for sightseeing. This operation is ongoing and continuous, and it will continue. I've got time for one more question.
Can you tell us when your last live rescue was?
Last question. As far as I know, the last live rescue, unless there's new information, and I don't believe there is, was made on Friday. All right, I'm afraid that's going to have to do it for this morning.
Can someone answer if the bodies have been released to the families, Sheriff?
Excuse me.
Have the bodies been released to the families?
Some. But they're at autopsy.
How many are still missing? We have an estimate among the general population, not just the girls from Mystic, even just credible reports. Is it hundreds still? Is there any estimate among the general population of how many people?
No, I've told y'all several times, it's hard to know that number. No, we don't. I know the numbers that we have found, and that's all I know.
You still don't want to tell us who is.
All right, so we're going to continue our operations. The next time that we're going to be in front of y'all will be at 5 p.m. right back here. If there is a critical update, again, we'll provide that information to you through the contact list that you have provided to us. Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
Whoa, folks.
Sir, I have one other question.
A lot of media outlets asking questions. Do you think the media outlets are inappropriate? We titled the video, Local Officials Under Fire. And that's exactly what we saw here. We saw these, questions being fired off in reference to, who was in charge, what's your response, preparations before, all that stuff, folks. And that's where we're at here. Local officials under fire. It could be possibly some people might get fired. Possibly. So we take you back to rescue operations going on. Your thoughts. Keep your conversations going on that one. Local officials under fire there. They said they're doing press conferences, but it seems like the local ones are getting, a lot of blowback compared to when Abbott was up there and whatnot. Is it the officials' fault or not? Local officials under fire. What about the residents? The residents here. So that's what we got going on, folks, with that update. They provided an update. 105 people have died. That number in Kerr County is less than the 105. They only speak on behalf of Kerr County. $87. They said 87. Melissa says they are just sugarcoating everything they are asked. They need to answer the reporters' questions. I don't think these reporters there are playing around with those questions there. But yeah, that's why we titled the video "Local Officials Under Fire." The sheriff heard from. The only one that seems to be humble, that doesn't speak a lot, but is very humble and very sad about the situation, it appears, is the mayor. Every time the mayor comes up, he has a very sombering, soft tone going on. But yeah, they searching for bodies. Now, did I hear this correctly or not? But now it's only down to a few children left from Camp Mystic. Because that's what it appears like. The number of people missing in that area has gone down to less than 10. I don't think they're dredging the rivers here. I think that what they're doing is getting rid of that debris all over. And then also in the course of getting, rid of the debris, it is believed that they're also looking for bodies. I think he said 7 or just a few, 5 girls and 1 counselor. That's what Frida Pickle says. 5 girls and 1 counselor. So, that means that, the death toll, there was 10 unless 5 people were found. But if it's 5 girls, 1 counselor, now that's 5 less than the 10 and 1 that was before yesterday. But here we are, folks. Continuous coverage of this terrible, terrible situation, Kerrville, Texas. And now we have 105 total in multiple counties. What's the response here? What's the aftermath? What's going to happen here? Are they going to open up the river area to these RVs? Oh, well, now there's a new alert that came out that says 108 people are now dead in Texas floods. The death toll, and this just came out 1 minute ago, overall, not just this county. The death toll has now risen to 108. 108 dead now. So it continues to go up, creep up. Last night we came on, it was 100. So overnight, more bodies were found. Overnight, 108 now confirmed dead. This comes from Kerr County Sheriff Larry L., who said 87 deceased have been recovered, up 3 from the county's previous tally. The 87 includes 30 children. At present, 5 Camp Mystic campers and 1 counselor still remains missing. 108, I have to put that in description. We keep going up. I think overall, the death toll could be at 150, all said and done. 108 are now crazy numbers. Crazy numbers. We're more than Surfside with the Surfside condo collapse. I mean, when we get these numbers into the hundreds, it takes it to a whole other level. But every victim counts. Every victim's family matters. Every victim matters. Every victim's family has a voice. Every victim's family is going through this. And even though, there's this amount of deaths, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rescues. 800 rescues, around 800 rescues. Each and every one of them are victims themselves. They're probably forever traumatized from the situation. Forever traumatized from this. There's talk that the camp will not open back up. That's what's being circulated on the internet. Now, that would be up to, remember, the director there lost his life. Person that's running the show there, he lost his own life saving girls. Will they open up this camp again? It sits on the banks of the river. Remains to be seen. So continuous coverage, folks. 108 confirmed dead now. We can continue to provide you updates and see what's going on. There is, as you see here, they're out there digging through the area. Now, this is really close to Camp Mystic. We don't know the exact location, but it has been put out that this is very close to where Camp Mystic is. Local officials under fire. Parents outraged. Locals outraged. Media asking for answers, demanding answers. Now, if you think about it, wouldn't you do it too? If you sent your child to a camp and your child didn't make it, wouldn't you be asking these same type of questions? I would. I would. Officials say next news conference will be held at 6 p.m. Eastern, and that will be with Greg Abbott, too. That's what they said, but now they're saying that they don't know if they're going to have a parallel news conference. Abbott's supposed to speak at Kerr County at 6 p.m. So any locals in the chat, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, Abbott will be speaking. Probably providing a federal response to the situation. Continuous coverage of this terrible, terrible tragedy. JLR and Magnolia investigates. AP had a feed this morning. They were just looking at the river. The river looks pretty calm now. And the forecast in that area appears like the rain kind of went away. Now, there's a threat of rain tomorrow, but nothing on the scale that we've had. Precipitation forecast today, literally a 0% chance of rain. At the end of the day, 20% in that area. So I don't think rain will be the issue per se here, which good for these volunteers and everyone. All that crazy rain that was all in that area, it's just gone. There's a little bit of rain in Texas, East Texas, east of Dallas, south of Houston, just a little stuff. Nothing. It's all gone. So that's some good news there. At least we can get some good news there. With that situation. JLR investigates. So, there are a lot of organization out there. They actually say there's a Mexican rescue team in that area. But let me just also say that it appears that they are bringing in more resources, which I thought was interesting too here. Let me get this report. They're bringing in more resources here. Missouri and Florida sent elite task forces to Texas. Missouri Task Force 1, part of the Boone County Fire Protection District, was activated by FEMA to deploy to Texas, focusing on water rescue operations and capabilities for detecting human remains. The 50-member team departed from Columbia, Missouri to Kerr County last night. Thank you for the comment. Is that Lil Ma woman, Texas? Little Ma, Wa, Ma, Little Ma, Little Ma. Thank you, thank you, thank you. From be safe out there from South Texas. Be safe in South Texas. We've been to South Texas. We love South Texas. We love South Texas. One spot we were considering locating one time would have been McAllen, Texas. It's like the American apple pie community. It looks so safe down there in McAllen. And it looked like a lot of families. We saw a lot of families go out there walking with children to church. It just looked like a nice, clean, safe community in South Texas. So we appreciate that from South Texas. All right. So, going back to this Missouri, Florida elite team, a 50-member team from Missouri has now been deployed to Kerr County last night. The team will do search and rescue operations. The task force includes 4 human remains detection canines and their handlers, as well as an additional search team manager. They will be in Texas for 14 days. Isn't that interesting, though, that these organizations from other states are coming in and plan to be there for a couple weeks? Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Urban Search and Rescue Team from Miami-Dade has also been activated, which they say is known as Florida Task Force 1. That 7-member team, including 2 canine search teams and support personnel, was deployed to assist in ongoing search operations in Texas. There's a new report out by CNN. Now, CNN, I believe, has been doing some really good reporting. I don't know how people feel about CNN as mainstream media. Some like them, some don't. I have mixed opinions about CNN. But lately, I feel like CNN has actually been doing really good work with their reporting. I don't know if things changed or what. They put out as Central Texas reels from flash floods that killed over 100 people this weekend. Questions are sharpening about whether officials, and this is what we heard in that press conference, whether officials could have done more to avert the tragedy, both in the decades leading up to the disaster and the moments after the Guadalupe began cresting its banks. And that was the type of questions when they started firing in questions to authorities here at this press conference. Local officials under fire. In recent years, multiple efforts in Kerr County to build a more substantial flood warning system has faltered or had been abandoned due to budget concerns, leaving the epicenter of this weekend's floods without emergency sirens that could have warned residents about the rising waters. A review of typically off-the-record communications from the real-time messaging system operated by the National Weather Service showed that no emergency manager from Kerr County was sending messages or interacting with NWS staff on the platform, even as emergency officials from other counties were doing so. Now, what they just said there is local emergency management in Kerr County were not communicating with the National Weather Service, unlike other counties. So who is this emergency manager? Is that gentleman that we've been seeing at the press conference there? The one that went for a jog at 3:30 a.m.? Is his name Dalton Rice? That's his name, right? Dalton Rice? Is that the individual that they're talking about? They're saying nobody was even there. Do they not have money in Kerr County or what? Now think about this, folks. You got one of the most, they call this flood alley, got one of the most dangerous flood areas in the United States when it comes to these flash floods in this particular area. I saw the National Weather Service put out the alarms. We shared tweets, 2nd, 3rd, all the way up into the 4th, into the early morning hours. National Weather Service, flood emergency, flood watch, flood emergency, potential, right? Where are the local officials? So believe it or not, CNN is kind of calling out and saying, yo, like there was nobody there in Kerr County interacting with the National Weather Service, unlike other counties. And it's one of the most dangerous counties when it comes to these potential flash floods. Don't you think that's kind of odd at all? Does anyone think that that's a problem here? Do they not have money in Kerr County? Does the taxpayers vote and say they don't want their money used for these certain services or what? At the same time, it's believed that most of these victims here in this terrible tragedy aren't even from Kerr County. So it's like parents from Dallas and Houston, affluent families, sending their children to, and family members or children to these boys and girls camps along the Guadalupe River into this county, and this county emergency management is not prepared to deal with the situation. They say the lack of messages doesn't mean officials in Kerr County weren't monitoring the communications from the National Weather Service and acting on them, but it raises new questions about local officials' actions, particularly in a crucial window between the National Weather Service first public warning at 1:14 a.m. and a more urgent flash flood warning sent hours later. I remember the very first time we covered this. It was about 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning on July 4th. Media outlet went up. They were down there by the Guadalupe River. At that point, homes were already going off their foundation into the water. There was reports of people crying and screaming and going out of the water. What's crazy about the situation, as you heard from the city manager there or the emergency person there in Kerr County, he said he went for a jog at 3:30 a.m. That's what he said. He went for a jog at 3:30 a.m. No rain. 4 o'clock, he comes back. Some starts drizzling, whatnot. Within an hour, here comes the floods. Some local officials have defended the decision not to order broad evacuations, saying there were concerned cars could have been trapped in quickly rising waters. Now, think about this, folks. I mean, they're saying, well, there's a delicate balance. Locals are like, if we warn everyone, then the cars will all start going all over the roads. The cars, the RVs, the trucks, everyone starts going on the road, and then people can get washed away. But you going to tell people not to evacuate out of that fear? But if you don't evacuate, you get swept away by the waters anyway. So there is some finger pointing here and some damage control on all parties here, justifying their actions here from that early morning hours of July 4th. Magnolia put up CNN, while at least one neighboring county issued evacuation orders in the morning hours of July 4th, Kerr County officials don't appear to have done so. And what we just heard with the media pounding them with questions, you know, we listen to many press conferences out there. We've seen some of these very controversial stories, like this is very controversial. Takes me back to Los Angeles with the wildfires when, you know, reporters were asking Karen Bask and the fire chief and all them about, you know, why you did this, why didn't you do that, why did you, you know, not prepare, why did you go over to Africa and Ghana while this was going on, when knowing that the backlash, because reporters are like, yo, we want some answers here. Well, we're kind of getting that here too. The reporters are going pretty hard on these officials, and these officials are firing back, and they might not be answering the questions right or ducking the questions. Communications from a real time messaging system operated by the National Weather Service showed that no emergency manager from Kerr County was sending messages or interacting with National Weather Service staff. But at the same time, you got other people like some politicians, really nothing to do with the state of Texas, calling out the National Weather Service like it's their fault. And I also saw kind of Kerr County throwing shade at National Weather Service saying, well, y'all said it was only going to be 3 to 6 inches of rain. Y'all, it's all y'all fault for not saying it was going to be more rain than it was. Texas apparently was mobilized or on alert because they activated their National Guard, Emergency Management National Guard days prior on the 2nd, according to reports on the 2nd and 3rd. So they were aware on the state. Kerr County Emergency Manager Management Coordinator WB Dub Thomas, that's his name, WB Dub Thomas, declined to comment when asked about his actions that took place during the early morning hours of Friday. No comment. I don't have time for an interview, so I'm going to cancel this call. When CNN contacted that gentleman right there, WB Dub Thomas, the Kerr County Emergency Management Coordinator. Oh, I don't have no time for an interview, so I'm going to cancel this call. This report goes on to say, while NWS issued numerous warnings early Friday morning as the danger increased, it's unclear how widely they reached those in more remote areas where cell phone service may have been limited, including at Camp Mystic. It's kind of crazy if you think about this. Yes, Camp Mystic, I love the concept. I think Christian camps are good for children, or any religious camps for children and stuff. And I think these type of camps and this type of activities is great on the minds of children, especially give them a week like that, give them the learning experience. I think that's great. And I think that should continue around the country. I think that's a good thing. But what I find very strange is the concept there is no cell phones off the grid, plus no cell phone really reception anyway, but they're not even allowed to have cell phones, yet they pile a bunch of kids in one of the most dangerous flood zone areas in the state of Texas, in the hill country, there, along the Guadalupe. It's dangerous, very, very dangerous. There was rescues at that same camp years ago out around that area, years back. Kids being pulled from helicopters because of floodwaters, but they don't have cell phones. So what do you do? What do you do if there is emergency? So I think that's kind of strange. That's like telling you to get out on your boat and go boating in the Gulf of America or Atlantic Ocean without a life vest. Thing about it is most of these parents, because this place is traditional, prominent people have been sending their children here. Laura Bush, former First Lady, George W. Bush's wife, she was a counselor there. Lady Bird Johnson had affiliations with the same camp. It's traditional. It's known as, hey, it's a good place to go, but maybe parents didn't, and I'm not blaming parents at all, but maybe they weren't told real information, or they didn't do, no one does their due diligence and search and do some research and say, where exactly am I sending my children? Oh my goodness, we are in a dangerous flood zone here. But most of us wouldn't think like that. Most of us, I wouldn't probably have thought that. I would just think the concept, oh, cool, neat. I'm going to send my child to a camp. But going back now, like looking at this area, it is very, very dangerous and has flooded numerous times in the past. On this type of level, a little bit less, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's old videos. I don't know if you saw, there's videos of children being plucked from the trees in the floodwaters from this same general area years back. 1987 was another one. They had another date, and kids were being pulled, rescued. I guess the point I'm trying to make is maybe we should all just do our due diligence when we book any type of trip or any type of place, or just know the dangers of where we're going. Like, I want to hike down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I've heard horror stories where floods are down there and people have to get rescued down there because you're just all channeled in there. There's nowhere to go. Maybe do some of the research there and look more. National Weather Service issued numerous warnings early Friday morning as the dangers increased. It is unclear how widely they reach those areas, the remote areas. No cell phone service. Verizon is claiming that they sent the alerts out. Verizon's like, we did our job. Verizon's like, hey, you got Verizon. Now, I don't know about T-Mobile, AT&T, but Verizon's like, yo, we sent out, I believe, like 3 alerts out during the morning on the phones. Carolina Catrona, a counselor at Camp Mystic, told CNN that counselors were not allowed to keep their phones at work. So she never received the National Weather Service warnings. This counselor was in the higher area at the camp overnight and avoided the floods. There's certain areas here. But some campers at Mystic were staying in areas that had previously been identified as high-risk flood zones. Ali Mustafa, a civil engineering professor at the Texas A&M University, said the disaster showed how efforts to prepare for floods failed to keep pace with the risk in the region, as he described as one of the deadliest flash flood alleys in the nation. Not just Texas, in the nation. One of the deadliest flash flood alleys in the nation. Local warning systems might have been adequate in the past, but for the new norm, they are not adequate. No, this is some pretty deep stuff, folks, because there's a lot of unanswered questions here. There are a lot of unanswered questions here. As Magnolia is putting on the screen, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said on Monday that the area needs flood sirens and that the state would help pay for them. So they want flood sirens in here, particularly for those communities down Ingram and Kerrville and Center Point and Comfort and all along the Guadalupe River. I'm just wondering now if the camping's going to stop. I believe the camp's going to get sued, personally, by some of the family members. If you got these affluent kids and family members, or kids come from affluent families in the Dallas area, the Beverly Hills of Dallas, you don't think any of them's going to sue? Might put this whole camp out of business. Sure, the camp has insurance. Maybe they had insurance. Maybe they don't. It's another story. The thing what I'm trying to say is, like, you got, as that person said, this is known as the most dangerous flash flood areas in the country, yet you don't have any cell phones or any way to communicate in case there's an emergency. I find that very strange. Like, of all places, this would be a place that would be expected to get a flood, but no way to get warning or communication. Verizon, AT&T, or nobody can't put a cell tower there. Failed plans for warning system. Now, it goes deeper because in 2016, there was talks in the town to get a system. Nobody wanted to pay for it, apparently. Local officials have long acknowledged the risk of deadly flooding in Kerr County. At a 216 meeting, County Commissioner Tom Moser declared that Kerr was probably the highest risk area in the state for flooding, and described the county's early warning system as pretty antiqued, marginal at best. Moser, who retired from the commission in 2021 told CNN that his efforts to improve the local system hit a wall after wall after wall over the years. After massive flooding elsewhere in the Hill Country in 2015, Moses said he studied how nearby Comal, C-O-M-A-L County had installed sirens, adopted plans for shutting off low water crossings, and made other flood preparations. So even in other counties, they were doing things. Not here. Not here in Kerr County. He suggested Kerr County follow suit. But some locals questioned where the funding would come from, while others worried about the noise. Some people don't like the concept of sirens going off and disturbing everyone. Now, that's pretty crazy because most communities around the country have hurricane and tornado, particularly the South. Almost every city has a tornado warning system that lets you know when an incoming tornado comes. Florida on the coastlines have hurricane warning systems in all the coastal communities. All the alarms go off. So I don't think anyone would think that's a problem. A lot of jails and prisons have warning systems, of an escaped inmate, whatever like that. Don't you think the locals want to know if there's drama, if there's potential danger? Don't you think the locals want to know what's up? I wouldn't think it's a bother. I would love to have sirens in storms. I'd love to have a siren to let me know when an incoming storm comes in. Absolutely. I want to be prepared. I got to look at my sky. It's crazy. Like when we get thunderstorms here, and they're crazy, we get tornadic stuff around here. As soon as I see any type of hear something and stuff, I'm immediately Googling around, going on my radar map and seeing what's up and where the storm's going. And if I feel like I'm in danger or what, I do a lot of warning to Magnolia. I'm like, yo, we're about to get some crazy thunderstorms here for the next hour or so. I think warning systems is great for all storms. Wish we had them for earthquakes. But the people there didn't want the money, or they didn't know how to pay for it, or they didn't want to pay for it. Guess that would come with taxes, right? Taxes. Can't you get state grants and funding for that? Subsidized. You got the worst flooding area in the United States, according to what we just read. Definitely in the state of Texas, it appears, yet no flood warning systems, no sirens. Because people think it would disturb the tranquil area of the camping. You think they just blow these alarms just every day that would annoy people? I don't think so. I'm sure they would have to do testing once in a while. This is a test by the emergency broadcast system. This is only a test. They do that. You know that. You get those alerts. You hear it on your radio. They do that like once every 3 months or whatever. I don't think it's annoying. It's for like a minute. That's it. Okay. At least we know it works. Hopefully it works when there's emergency. A lot of state prisons. Once a month. Fire off the alarms. The locals know that. It's just to test it and just, Here's what one of the fellow commissioners voiced concerns in a 216 meeting. It said H.A. Buster Baldwin, another commissioner at the time, the thought of our beautiful Kerr County having these damn sirens going off in the middle of the night. I'm going to have to start drinking again to put up with y'all, said Baldwin. That's what came from one of the county commissioners back in 216, who he died, by the way, in 2022, they say. He said this: the thought of our beautiful Kerr County having these damn sirens going off in the middle of the night. I'm going to have to start drinking again to put up with y'all. He wasn't with it. So did the commissioners of Kerr County fail the residents? Well, we're not there. We don't know either. It's also the will of the people, right? It's also, right, in a sense, it's kind of like the will of the people, right? There's a lot of things out there where people feel like government overreach and does things without the residents' consent, or want to do things and all these types of things, and the residents aren't with it. Everyone's supposed to be in line on the same page. Maybe overall, residents there say no. We don't, we're outsiders. We don't know what's really going on in Kerr County, Texas. In 2017, officials with the county and Upper Guadalupe River Authority, which manages the river, applied for a $980,000. They applied for $980,000 in Federal Emergency Management Agency funds to build a flood warning system, but were denied. So they wanted, that's Federal Emergency Management Agency, aka FEMA, but were denied. Well, should FEMA pay for the whole thing? FEMA's the federal government. Should they say, hey, nah, we won't put it on the taxpayers, but we'll just federal fund the whole thing and give you $1 million? Do you think FEMA has $1 million just to give out to people? Is it a federal issue to solve this? So they wanted to put it up at FEMA, but it was denied. Without state or federal funding, Moser said, a flood warning system just didn't get to the top of the list of funding priorities for the county itself, even though commissioners have considered all the number of people that have died in flash floods in the past. But isn't this supposed to be like a tourist area for campers? You want people to come back if this is your bread and butter for your community. This is your Disney World. This is your Busch Gardens. This is your Great Adventure, Six Flags. This is your Six Flags in the community. It seems like the staple for this community is the camps and the people coming in. I don't know how it works with, it might boost the economy. Hunt, it appears, has 1,500 residents in the wintertime, but in the summer it doubles its population because of these camps and people there. The economic drive, they can't create no revenue out there to pay for this or make their, number one I don't know what their number one revenue is, but make their operation more efficient and safe. That's a Chinook. Isn't that a Chinook? Holy smokes. Then they say in 2021, meeting minutes show how county commissioners discussed possibly allocating funds for a warning system that specifically included sirens. An engineer said a county commissioner had identified $50,000 for the system, but the plans went nowhere. So even though it was as cheap as $50,000, they didn't do it. $50,000 for a whole county, and they don't want to put in any type of warning system? They're saying more recently, local officials consider applying for money for the system from Texas Flood Insurance Fund, but declined to submit an application because the grant would have only covered about 5% of the cost of installation. How does a county don't have money to put a $50,000 system in? Don't even have the money for that? Where's all the money going? Where's all this tax revenue going in Kerr County? I don't think you can get a system for $50K. And I think it would cost more than that. This is a vast amounts of land. You would need probably one of these sirens every, I don't know how far a siren can hear, but you could hear a siren pretty far. Warning systems and everything like that. I would say probably every half mile, quarter mile. Mile might be efficient. Sometimes you can't hear a mile away, though. You could probably hear a quarter mile to half a mile away. Enough to wake people up. All you need is like something really crazy. All you need is, if you hear a siren, you literally could get out of there in just minutes. If the siren's coming, and if the water's coming, the wall of water, it moves. But if you got 5 minutes, all you need is like 5 minutes. You're sleeping at night, alarms go off, you got a 5-minute warning. Tsunami warnings go off. You know tsunami warnings. Sometimes the tsunami warnings go off. Then you don't know if a tsunami is going to come in the next hour, but you got time. Matter of fact, the flooding here reminded me of that Japan tsunami. Remember the Japan tsunami? When the water got pushed out and came right into Japan. Those videos are absolutely insane. Crazy along the water there, man. The tsunami, you like have literally no chance. Rushing water coming all over the place, pounding on cars, homes. It's crazy. Just this year, officials were moving forward with a more limited goal. The River Authority posted a request for bids on a project to develop a data resource to improve flood warning to the public in the county. According to an archived webpage from February. In April, just a few months ago, the River Agency passed a resolution to select a firm for the project. An official said at a meeting the following month that consolidating rainfall, stream flow, and other flood-related data would enhance delivery of flood warnings for the public. Moser said he thought that if the county had implemented an early warning system, it could have saved lives. Absolutely, it could have saved some lives. I'm not saying it would save all of them. Some people probably just slept and deep sleepers. Look at this. Look what Magnolia put up. Camp Mystic had 750 girls there at $5,000 each. That is $3,750,000 per year. No one in Kerr County could afford $50,000 in flood sirens. Camp Mystic couldn't even afford their own flood sirens and their own warning systems and everything like that. For themselves, at least, on their property. Has greed overtaken this whole entire thing. Greed. Money. And folks, I don't know if this is offending people while we're asking questions here because, you know, this is an industry. There's probably other places in the country that have low-lying areas with camps and things like that. Everybody should be paying attention here. This industry here, camps. They're apparently Camp Mystic's making money. Now, of course, they got overhead and costs and counselors and pay and food and all that stuff. Yes. But I'm sure they come out in making profit, significant profit. Crazy. Hopefully the families get some answers. I would want answers. If I lost my loved one from being at a camp because of a river, I would, just like if you were a victim of a murder, your loved one dies in a murder. You want every single answer possible. You want to know everything. No service, no sirens in the most flooded area, prone area in the United States, the most flood risk area in the United States. Sounds just weird to me. It's like a ticking time bomb. 4,000 per camper for 30 days needs cellular access. This is not 1970s, folks. It's not the great outdoors. I mean, we are in time. A lot of you go camping, and most of you, even though you go camping, and I hike trails myself, I take my phone with me. Even though I might not use my phone or try not to use it, maybe occasionally look at my emails or see what's going on, trending or what's going on. But for an emergency, the phone is there in case of emergency. Matter of fact, anywhere I go, sometimes I get a little lazy and I leave my phone in my car, but I remind myself, go get my phone just in case I go into a store or a place and there's some sort of emergency. Shooting, chaos, something you have to call, health issues, someone dying. Have your phone on you in case of emergency. I think that's appropriate for everyone to do. I understand the concept of getting off the grid, getting away from computers. I think that's great. But at the same time, you should have at least some communications just in case you are in a situation where you need it. What happens if somebody there has a heart attack? What about if some camper kills another camper and there's chaos or something? You know, you need to call authorities. So I'm sure that the owners have cell phones tucked in their drawers. Now, I get it. I guess they don't want the kids, you know, hanging out on the phones at night because it takes away from the experience of camping. This Ellie says, and no one thought about safety. So if the county had implemented a early warning system, it could have saved lives. You know, cell phones are good, okay? Text messages are good, but at the same time, there are places in hill country you can't get a good signal. They're saying in the town down the road, down the river, Comfort, they said they had 2 sirens going off to at least alert the residents to evacuate. According to Brian Boiter, a volunteer firefighter in the town of Comfort, he said that alarms did go off in Comfort. Comfort's, you know, down the river. It's crazy because if you look at Camp Mystic, it's all like on the South Fork with the Cypress. It's right there. There's numerous camps there, though. Some are high, some are low, but there's some right there in like the bullseye, like at a cross here where a creek tributary hits that South Fork of the Guadalupe right there. And you're like in a bullseye. It's like I'm trying to use an example here because I've been seeing a lot of those Western floods. I don't know if you've ever seen those Western type of floods. The land is dry. You just need like an inch of rainfall and everything it doesn't sink. And all the water just flows and it just flows. And then it turns into this like leading edge of this like wall of water that's like 4 feet up. And then behind it, it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And it's just sticks and trees and debris and all types of mud. And it just goes like a tsunami. Kind of like an avalanche. Well, if you're kenneled down there in that little point there, where's your escape? If a flash flood comes, and it don't even necessarily have to rain at that location. It could rain up the river. 10 miles away, it could have crazy rain. Because the way this happened, too, is certain areas got just dumped of rain while other places didn't. And these spinning cells just sat there and just sat there and sat there and sat there. And I'm sure where you all are at, I've had it before where my area, it would just rain like maybe 5 minutes away, no rain. But my area would just pound of rain for an hour, just heavy rain, just this cell that would just sit there. Similar to Hurricane Dorian. Some slow-moving system that just doesn't even move and just sits there. Some places it rains, some places it doesn't. Early warning systems, folks. I think we're kind of like solution-oriented people. What's the solution here to prevent this thing from ever happening? Man, there's videos. La Junta, the other camp there, there's videos of cabins being floating away. We shared that one. And that one that we shared with that cabin with the lights and everything like that, and there were flashing lights saying people on it. Believe it or not, they're now reporting that particular cabin that floated away actually got wedged into some trees. I'm reading here. And they actually made it. Thank God. A cabin filled with staff members at the Camp La Junta, right, was captured on video floating along the Guadalupe River on Friday. They were awoken at 4 a.m. to the sounds of breakers flipping. They didn't even know they were floating. The cabin had 4 men inside, ages 19 to 22. The cabin was ripped off its foundation and floated along the river for about 30 seconds. The cabin eventually hit a tree and got wedged between the tree and a stone wall, bringing the cabin to a stop. It was pure luck that the cabin had stopped. All men were eventually able to exit safely and evacuated. Thank God. Crazy stuff, folks. Continuous coverage of this terrible tragedy. We're having a conversation, keeping it going, just talking a little bit, informing people, bringing public awareness. We listened to the press conference. We heard your thoughts. We'll see if the governor gets scolded today. I don't think the governor is going to get, they're going to allow the governor to get scolded like they were doing here. Well, the media was asking questions. There is backlash here. And I think this is just the beginning with the situation. Lyndon B. Johnson's daughter hopes tragedy will prevent future flooding disasters at Camp Mystic. Lucy Baines Johnson, former President Lyndon B. Johnson's daughter, says she hopes comprehensive information, kind of like what we're doing here, spilling out all scenarios, comprehensive information about the deadly flooding disaster that killed 27 campers and counselors will lead to better safety measures and decisions in the future. What we know for sure is that we can and must do better in memory of all these precious little children who gave their lives, in memory of all their families and those who love them, in memory in all of those who came to celebrate our country's birth of the 4th of July on the banks of the Guadalupe River. One of our camp songs was "On the Banks of the Guadalupe River, where hearts are loyal and true, Camp Mystic we pledge our true and faithful love to you." That was a song. And I don't know if I said it right. I'll sing it again. On the banks of the Guadalupe River, where hearts are loyal and true, Camp Mystic we will pledge our true and faithful love to you. She said she hopes the tragedy will spur further action. My hope is, my prayer is that somehow, some way, we can make some decisions that will spare future generations the agony that ours is going through right now. See, solutions, preventative measures. What steps is Kerr County going to make sure this happens? I don't think any of these camps should open back up until they figure out what in the heck is going on. And I wasn't even going to say what in the hell is going on. What in the heck is going on? I don't think any of these camps, my opinion, you all might feel otherwise. You're just going to graze this area, set up camps, and go back to normal without any warning systems and hope and pray that this doesn't happen again, even though it happened numerous times already? Is that the solution here? Just graze the area, build back better, no warning signs, no warning systems, and let everyone camp again. Seems like history repeat itself here. They've already did some major rescues in the past, and now this was like the big one that hit. What we say about earthquakes, the big one, everyone. But what are you going to do? You're just going to go back to business as if those lives don't matter and just bring in the next crop of kids. It's a cash cow. It's a flow. It's just bring in the next group of people and keep business turning. Yeah, it's literally like a graveyard now. And I don't want to be offensive, but it's literally a graveyard now. These are some top. These are uncomfortable things to say. Uncomfortable truths. Uncomfortable truths out there. Again, there's talk that Camp Mystic might not even be back open again. Kerr County officials dodge questions on flood response timeline. Sheriff learned of flash flood hours after. Oh, it's over. I'm going to blow myself up here. Finish the conversation a minute. All right, so listen to this, and we're gonna end this shortly because I don't really see any other reports. But the bottom line is public outcry. Kerr County officials dodge questions on flood response timeline. Sheriff learned of flash floods hours after alert. 4 days after flash floods in Central Texas killed more than 100 people, Kerr County officials repeatedly seem to dodge and deflect questions from reporters Tuesday about when they knew the floods would pose a deadly threat and refused to commit to a timeline of their official response. Despite the National Weather Service first public warning alert at 1:14 a.m. on July 4th, Kerr County Sheriff Larry L. told reporters he was not made aware of the flash floods until 4 or 5 in the morning. We understand you may have questions. We understand that. But right now, this team up here is focused on bringing people home. Does that mean that they still think people are alive? So there is a lot of questions here. I want to get this up on the map, though. Let me see if anything else is brewing on here, if we got any other live scenes of the location. But we can always come back later on and continue the conversation later. I got to cover Diddy in a little bit. If you are, if you've been with us with Sean P. Diddy Combs, we have a sentencing type of situation discussing sentencing with his case. Starting, we'll be live at 1:30. It is 12:17. So we got another hour to that. But we will probably be back later on today with this story, with the press conference and everything on that. But let me just see one thing here, and let me just see if anything else is remaining. If not, we'll hold that off to later, because I like to hear what Abbott says, and I like to hear what the authorities say, and I want to hear it, see if Abbott stands side by side with the local authorities, and they all, all of them feel like, they're all on the same page here. They might be on the same page. They might not. Let me see something here. Stand by. But yeah, we will be back then. That's kind of what I think we're going to plan to do here, is just come back a little bit later. So it's been real. So I don't see any other feeds up. So we'll keep that information later. And if there's any type of miracles or anything crazy that's going on in real time, we will share on JLR Investigates. That was just showing you what they're doing there, but it doesn't appear that there's any other, reports coming out of there for sure. All right. With that being said, signing off. We cover this tragedy 24. Look at OJ. Look at OJ. Look, OJ's back. We cover this tragedy 24/7, 365. We've been here since day one, every day, giving you updates of what's going on. And let us know what you think. Let me know if you agree with me or not. And keep your opinions and keep letting us know what you think. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks for watching. JLR Investigates. Stay safe out there.